Today's July 6, 2010. This is hole 10 at North Shore Country Club. Just a little update on the turf health after a long weekend. We had 9 inches of rain since Labor Day. Chronic rains occurring every 3 days on the average, all being heavy. Really not allowing the soil to dry out in between rain events, which is problematic for root growth. Consequently, this spring we really experienced poor shallow rooting. Here's a little bit of fairy ring. We'll cover that later. But the fairways, you can see with the Primo Embark and the wetting agents that we've been using, they're holding up wonderful. Up on the green, you can see some faint lines with the air fire holes are left behind. That is because of the porosity that's developed with the air firing. And what I mean by that here, Juan's gonna cut a cup here where we have a little bit of thinning taking place on in the center of the green here. Some of that's anthracnose, some of that is just mid-season stress. But what I want to demonstrate here is the rooting that takes place when the turf is under stress, mainly the Poa annua. We're going to go over the USGA green after this and show you in contrast what the bent versus the Poa is like. So you can see we got some good root mass, but it's coming only out of the air fire hole here. If you can see that hole, that's where these roots are coming out. That's why they're coming out in bundles. There's a couple exceptions here where there's some roots coming from the soil, but mostly it's coming from the air firing root, or the air firing hole where the roots are. Now we'll extract this plug. Go ahead, Juan, pull it out. And I'll show you how the soils differ in these old push-up greens. You can see the heavy, dark, organic material there. The plug just popped. That means that the interface here, there are no roots in this heavy soil because of the excess moisture, but basically pushing out the soil gases, not allowing the roots to be to develop and be healthy in this heavier soil. And the bulk density is really heavy. Now you can see some root mass here. That's an old air fire hole. So now you can see the importance of those deep air firing holes. They physically make the porosity by having the physical hole being made by the steel tine, but ideally you want soil particles to allow the porosity. Now we'll continue to extract the plug here, and this is where most of the action's taking place at this time of year. You can see the straight sand top dressing in contrast to the darker subgrade soil. That's the problem with these old push-up greens. USGA green has this type of soil throughout the root zone, sand with good positive drainage at the bottom. So bottom line, this is what we're managing right now. So it's very hard to keep putting surfaces firm, because if you allow this top part to dry out, which would give you the firm playing conditions, that's where all the root mass is now, and then the plant will suffer from drought stress, and then you have the chance of getting anthracnose, which is a devastating disease that kills the Poa annua pretty quick and is very hard to control chemically or in any means culturally once you get it. The name of the game is prevention. But you can see where the high sand content is. There's good root mass throughout the plug, but again, it's all up in the upper surface. So what we decided to do here, when we saw this going under stress, you can see with a critical eye the slight thinning that's taking place here. The Poa annua, the bent grass is more the blue or green. You can see is healthy, is still doing fine. I mean, I'm sure it's under some stress, but nothing like the Poa annua here that you can see that's off color. So brown being beautiful, well, again, that's a matter of opinion. But when this Poa annua goes brown, that means your roots are dying back, and all your management now is at the upper surface. What we do to try to combat that is use wetting agents and growth regulators to try to encourage deeper roots, fewer shoot growth and leaf tissue growth, and the wetting agents to get an even soil moisture throughout that root zone profile. So it's just for contrast, we're going to go to the USGA green where we're mowing at 95 thousandths of an inch still. These greens we were mowing at 105 up until today, and I raised the mowing heights 10 thousandths, so we'll be up to 115 thousandths of an inch. The more leaf tissue you can offer the plant, the deeper the roots and the healthier the plant. With that low mowing height, combined with this heat and midsummer stress with the long days and the intense sun, is just too stressful for these old POA greens. So we're going to go to the USGA green now. Okay, here we are at the USGA green, July 6th. Here, this green, you all know, has been in place here as a functioning short game practice area as well as a research green. And we have 20 different cultivars of creeping bent grasses here. And we're mowing this at 95 thousandths of an inch, which I don't think I would think of doing out on the old POA greens that we have out in the field. But what we want to do is kind of give this an acid test to see which bent grass varieties really tolerate this low mowing. You can see just the fine texture here, the beautiful stand of turf. These are some of the A series bent grasses. You can see others aren't faring quite as well. There's a little bit of off color. They're under some stress, but they're not dying like the Poania is. So you can see there are some variety differentials here on how they tolerate midsummer stress as well as this ultra low mowing. But here we're going to cut a cup. We're going to cut a plug out of this plot here just to show you what I meant by porosity and the importance, especially during heavy rain events. When you have a soil profile that's all sand, the sand particles themselves offer the porosity, and we don't have to go ahead and extract that. We don't have to. You can see it's all sand. It looks almost like a bunker. It's kind of weird when you grow something in like this, but there you can see it broke. So the roots here are still up high, but not as high as, or not as shallow as the POA greens are. So there's your sandy ridge zone. Allows for positive drainage regardless of how much rain comes. Allows for good soil gases. But this plug here, I can hardly even break it apart. It is so dense with root mass here that this green is still very healthy. This turf grass can still tolerate additional stress at this time. So there's your difference in part with the two different ridge zones and bent versus Poania. If we had greens like this out there, we can continue to push them pretty hard through the playing season and not be as worried as losing them as the old bent POA greens are with the push-up ridge zones.